Okay. So today we'll hear further about the symptoms of Kali Yuga, and especially the important lesson we can pay attention is about the how we can be detached from this world, from this body, and from this world and our possessions through this narration. Swamini Gopal Matri, if you're ready, you can start, Matri.
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevayat Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 2nd chapter, verses 23 to 44. The symptoms of Kali Yuga. Text 23. When the Supreme Lord has appeared on the earth as Kalki, the maintainer of religion, Satya Yuga will begin, and human society will bring forth progeny in the mode of goodness. Text 24. When the moon, the sun, the Brihaspati are together in the constellation Karkataka, and all three enter simultaneously into the lunar mansion Pusya. At that exact moment, the age of Satya or Krita will begin. Text 25. Thus I have described all kings, past, present, and future, who belongs to the dynasty of the sun and the moon. Text 26. From your birth up to the coronation of King Nanda, 1150 years will pass. Text 27 and 28. For the seven stars forming the constellation of the seven sages, Pulaha and Kratu, are the first to rise in the night sky. If a line running north and south were drawn through the midpoint, whichever of the lunar mansion this line passes through is said to be the ruling stream of the constellation for that time. The seven sages will remain connected with that particular lunar mansion for 100 human years. Currently, during your lifetime, they are situated in the nakshatra called Magha. Text 29. The Supreme Lord Vishnu is brilliant like the sun and is known as Krishna. When he returned to the spiritual sky, Kali entered this world, and people then began to take pleasure in sinful activities. Text 30. As long as Lord Sri Krishna, the husband of goddesses of fortune, touched the earth with his lotus feet, Kali was powerless to subdue this planet. Text 31. When the constellation of the seven sages is passing through the lunar mansion Magha, the age of Kali begins. It comprises 1200 years for the demigods. Text 32. When the great sages of Saptarshi constellation passes from the Magha to Purvashada, Kali will have his full strength, beginning from King Nanda and his dynasty. Text 33. Those who scientifically understand the past declare that on the very day of the Lord Sri Krishna departed from the spiritual world, the influence of age of Kali began. Text 34. After 1000 celestial years of Kali Yuga, the Satya Yuga will manifest again. At that time, the mind of all men will become self-effulgent. Text 35. Thus I have described the royal dynasty of Manu. As it is known on this earth, one can similarly study the history of the Vaishyas, Sudras, and Brahmanas living in the various ages. Text 36. These personalities who were great souls are now known only by their names. They exist only in accounts for the past, and only their fame remains on the earth. Text 37. Devapi, the brother of Maharaja Sanatu, and Maru, the descendant of Ishwaku, both possesses great domestic strength and are living even now in the village of Kalapa. Text 38. At the end of the age of Kali, these two kings, having received instruction directly from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, will return to human society and re-establish the eternal religion of man, characterized by divisions of varnas and ashrama, just as it was before. Text 39. The cycle of four ages, Satya, Treta, Dwapara, and Kali, continues perpetually among living beings on this earth, repeating the same general sequences of events. Text 40. My dear King Parikshit, all these kings I have described, as well as all other human beings, come to this earth and stake their claims, but ultimately they all must give up this world and meet their destruction. Text 41. Even though a person's body may now have the designation king, in the end of its name will be worms, stools, and ashes. What, what can a person who injured other living beings for the sake of his body know about his own self interest, since his activities are simply leading him to hell? Text 42. The materialistic king thinks this unburdened earth was held by my prejudices, predecessors and is now under my uh, sovereignty. How can I arrange for it to remain in the hands of my sons, grandsons, and other descendants? Text 43. Although the foolish accepts of the body made of earth, water, and fire as me, and this earth is as mine, in every case they have ultimately abandoned both their body and earth and passes away into oblivion. Text 44. My dear King Parikshit, all these kings who tries to enjoy the earth by their strength were reduced by the forces of time or to nothing more than historical accounts. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, 2nd chapter, The Symptoms of Kali Yuga. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Madhuri. So, this chapter, we're in the 12th canto, second chapter. We heard in the previous chapter how the Kshatriyas became degraded in their consciousness by the infiltration of Sudras, like that we heard. And in this chapter beginning, we heard different symptoms of Kali Yuga, how all the good qualities are going away and bad qualities are manifest rampantly, like that we've been hearing. And now the coming section, now today's section, we hear two things primarily. One is that how Kali Yuga, at the end of the Kali Yuga, how Satya Yuga established. There's one theme established. And then after that, other theme is how different kings, even though they had so much possessions, so much great things with them in their positions, opulences in their position, finally they have to leave the body. So through that account, we'll also hear the theme about detachment that we need to cultivate for our body and our positions, like that. Those are the two main themes for today. We'll continue. So text 23 onwards is described like you heard at the end of the Kali Yuga, almost at the end of the Kali Yuga. This Srimad Bhagavatam is actually giving predictions now. What is going to happen? We know Kali Yuga stands for like 420,000 years, 432,000 years actually. So only few years passed now. So at the end of the Kali Yuga, what happens is being described. So Krishna appears as Kalki Avatara, and then Satya Yoga will begin, and human society will bring forth progeny in the mode of goodness. Because at the end of the Kali Yuga, mostly people will be in mode of ignorance. So now, with the beginning of Satya Yuga, again mode of goodness will be prominent, like that. So the next couple of verses are indicating the particular star constellations at which time the moment of Satya Yuga or Krita Yuga, both are same meaning. Satya or Krita Yuga will start, like that is describing. Now 25th verse he concludes. Remember we discussed yesterday that how Sukadeva Goswami is continuing his narration of different dynasties, rulers in different dynasties, specifically the Moon dynasty that he ended in ninth canto end. Now he's continuing in the 12th canto, we heard. So now he's confirming that he completed all the rulers in the Sun and Moon dynasty, now prominent rulers in the Sun and Moon dynasty. Now he says, from your birth, that means from Parishit Maharaj's birth up to the coronation of King Nanda, 1150 years have passed, will pass, he's saying. That means this has not happened yet, right? He's saying another 1150 years, Kali Yuga will be very, very rampant after that, like that is pointing out. So then the star constellation of the seven sages is described. And then, yeah, the next set of verses from 29 and 30 is describing how Kali Yuga also actually entered when Krishna was on this planet. But Kali Yuga could not flourish. It just stayed dormant because of Krishna's power. So that's what is being described here, 29 30th verse. That but when Krishna returned back to the spiritual world, then Kali entered this world with prominence, and people began to take pleasure in sinful activities, like that is described. So basically, the point is, as long as Krishna is on the earth, with his lotus feet on the touching the earth, Kali was powerless because Krishna was subduing the Kali's influence, like that is described in this verses. Now going to the next verse, at a particular constellation of stars or seven sages, the age of Kali begins to describe, right? And it says it comprises 1200 years of the demigods. In terms of demigod celestial years, is 1200 years. Is described after 1000 years of 1000 celestial years of Kali Yuga, Satya Yuga will start, like that is described in a couple of verses from now. Yeah, that was 34th verse. And then it's described at that time, the minds of all men will become self-effulgent. When Satyuga starts, minds of people will be self-effulgent, like that is describing. Now going to 35th verse, now he's concluding, Sukadeva Goswami is concluding that he described the dynasty of Manu. Which Manu? Vaivashvata Manu. On this earth, one can similarly study the histories of Vaishyas, Sudras, and Brahmanas living in the various ages. What does he mean by this? Acharyas are describing. But remember, in the previous set of verses, he described how, as the Kali Yuga progresses, the Kshatriyas' good qualities go down and they become like Sudra-like qualities, like that, filled with mode of ignorance, like that. The way he analyzed the Kshatriyas going down in terms of qualities, we can analyze and understand and hear about Vaishyas, Brahmanas, and Shudras also, like that is saying in one summary verse, basically. Then, 36th verse, he says, okay, this is important. Okay, actually, this is the same principle we learned in the previous cantos, where there were chapters full of lots of names of the kings, like that, right? So here also we can see, here Krishna, Sukadeva Goswami is personally telling in this verse. What is he saying? That these personalities who are great souls are now known only by their names. So they exist only in accounts from the past, and only their fame remains on the earth. So that means when they were ruling, they were powerful rulers. Many of these kings even ruled the whole world also, like that. For example, Yudhishthira Maharaj, Parishit Maharaj, they even ruled the whole world, it seems, as emperor. So they were so great. But ultimately, after they're gone, so if you see, after few thousand years, we only know many of them by name only, one name, Kratu, like that. Some name we know, Nanda, like that. Maybe one sentence about them, not more than that. So that is very important for us to understand. So that is a theme in the next set of verses. There are two themes around this, but primarily to emphasize the detachment in all of us. So Acharyas are describing that this 12th canto is when the last few hours of Parikshit Maharaj were left on this planet. So Sukadeva Goswami, before his ending his descriptions, Krishna Katha, is inducing that sense of renunciation, sense of detachment in Parikshit Maharaj. So that way, he doesn't think about again becoming king, staying in the identity of a king, being attached to the royal opulence or anything like that. Actually, Parikshit Maharaj already came out to the bank of the Ganges already. But still, he wants to emphasize. So that way, he doesn't even worry about that anymore like that. He's inducing that renouncing or detachment spirit in them like that. So now we can also develop that basically. The purport is saying, in other words, it's useless to be attached to power and prestige in the material world. That is the point being shared. So that means we should not be so much attached. Oh, I want to be known like this. I want to be known like that. I want to be. I want to have the power. I want to influence so many people. All that is only materialistic. Ultimately, they all go away. Actually, this principle is exemplified in the next set of verses again. And then how does the Satyuga start is also being described in the next couple of verses. How does the Satyuga start is, there are two personalities. One is Devapi, who is the brother of Maharaj Santanu, it seems. And then Maru, who is a descendant of Ikshvaku. They both have great mystic power systems and are living even now in the village of Kalapa. That's a place in the Himalayas, it seems. So then that is mentioned by Gurujan Prabhu. It's not there in the verse that Kalapa is in a village in near Himalayas. So basically at the end of the Kali Yuga, these two kings, Devapi and Maru, they receive the instructions from Supreme Lord, it seems. And then what do? They'll come back to the general human population place instead of staying in the remotely in Himalayas, and they reestablish the eternal religion of man. That means Sanatan Dharma will re-establish again, which is characterized by Varna Ashrama system. Basically, purport is clarifying that these two personalities are already there, but they're waiting for the opportunity to render service to Krishna by establishing Sanatana Dharma like that. So the last set of verses emphasize the point we discussed about the detachment, need for detachment with the body and the positions related to the body like that. So that we'll talk about with reference to materialistic kings, but it's an important lesson for us also. So 13th verse is describing how the cycle of 4 ages, Satya, Treta, Dwapara and Kali, continues perpetually among living beings on this earth, repeating the same general sequence of events. Generally, similar events happen, but of course there are some variety also is described by Acharyas. But generally, similar sequence of events happens. And Sukadeva Goswami is describing, my dear King Parikshit, all these kings I have described, as well as all other human beings, come to this earth and stake their claims. That means, oh, I am the king, I am emperor, I am this, I am that, like that. With the different designations, they stake their claims. Even this home is mine, this land is mine, like that claims, right? But ultimately, they all must give up this world and meet their destruction. Sukadeva Goswami is emphasizing to him that even though people may claim this designation, that designation, this is mine, that is mine, ultimately they will go away only. This body will be left, even though their eternal soul. So now to emphasize the detachment furthermore, in text 41 it says, even though a person's body may now have the designation king, in the end, its name will be worms, stool, or ashes. So what can a person who injures other living beings for the sake of his body know about his own self-interest? Actually, by that activities to injure others, to hurt others, they're actually leading path to the hell, is describing Sukadeva Goswami. So purport clarifies nicely. This is a commonly described concept when describing when it is required to induce detachment in our body like that. What is the concept? After we pass away from this body, after the soul passes away from this body, the body is usually put in three different ways. Especially, for example, if it is Christians, for example, they bury the body in the earth. When they bury the body, generally it becomes a food for worms. And then worms will eat and it will turn into stool like that. And then in our Hindu culture, generally the body is burnt in fire. When you burn in fire, what will happen to the body? Body will become ashes. So then third third potential way of handling the body is left in the forest or left alone somewhere. That no burning, no fire, no burning in the fire. In that third scenario, basically some other living entities like birds or animals will eat the body. So that also becomes their stool, like that is described. So basically, like this, in this case, ashes or stool or they will be eaten by worms also, like that is described basically. The three different outcomes coming up. So now for the body that is temporary and that is becoming like this ashes stool like that, right? For such a body, why are we trying to hurt others, injure others, and get something from them? So that is not worth it. Because by injuring others, by hurting others, we're actually going to hellish planets, like that is being described here. So that's what Sukadeva Goswami is describing. And then the purport clarifies one should give up all envious violence. And what is the positive thing to do? We need to learn to see God in everything and everyone by the process of Krishna consciousness. That's a positive thing we need to learn also. Now, 42nd verse, he says, the materialistic king thinks, oh, this whole earth or this set of land was belonging to my predecessors, that means my forefathers. Now it belongs to me. And then I want to make sure it goes to my sons, my grandsons, like that. So that is a so far it talked about bodily conception and attachment to the body. Now shifting to mind conceptions, mameti, that means uh, my possessions. Detachment from that is being emphasized now in the next set of verses. So although the foolish accept the body made of earth, water, and fire as me, and the earth as mine, that means what earth they're ruling is mine. In every case, they have ultimately abandoned both the body and also the earth and passed away into oblivion. So, even though the soul is eternal, our earthly fame will certainly pass into oblivion. There is a point being made here. So, the last verse for today. Uh, Again, Parishit Maharaj, Sukadeva Goswami addresses Parishit Maharaj as king, Rajan. Apparently, that is significant. That is described in the by Acharyas here. Basically, he says all these kings who tried to enjoy by their strength were reduced by the force of time to nothing more than historical accounts. Remember, several verses ago, he made the same point. He's concluding the same point that even though they are so great kings now, they enjoyed so many things, they possess so many land, so much land and all that, so much power, so much influence. They all become historical accounts now. It's just a name for somebody. In fact, we also think many times that without me, my family cannot run, without me, my office cannot run, without me, my friends cannot live, like that we may think sometimes. But actually, all of us are replaceable. If you notice, when somebody passes away, we think, how will everything run? Like that we'll think. But then somebody will do something. Obviously, it will be somebody will pass through some time of turbulence and difficulty to do the same level of service the other person did. But none of our service is indispensable. All of our services can be replaced by somebody. When we remember that, then we'll not become proud of what we are doing, what we're able to do, like that. And then we feel grateful that while we are here, we're getting that opportunity to serve our family, serve our office, serve our society, temple, whatever we can do. We'll feel grateful. Otherwise, we'll become proud. Oh, look, only I can do this. Nobody else knows this service, like that we think. But it's a matter of time. When we pass away, somebody will learn in few weeks, few months, few years. But it's a matter of time. then that will help us to understand, to put us into right place, not in the place of pride and prestige like that. The purport is making few points. So remember I was telling about how Sukadeva Goswami is giving the final instructions to Parikshit Maharaj. His purport is clarifying that only. The Rajan address is significant. Parikshit Maharaj was preparing to give up his body and go back home. So Sukadeva Goswami is most merciful spiritual master. Who's spiritual master? Parikshit Maharaj spiritual master. Devastated any possible attachment that he might have to the position of king by showing the ultimate insignificance of such a position of king. Basically, this is the mercy of the spiritual master, that he is giving mercy to Parikshit Maharaj, telling him that this position of king is useless, like that is telling. The spiritual master teaches one to relax one's strong grip on material illusion and leave the kingdom of Maya behind. Actually, it's described, my spiritual master also describes regularly, that one of the duties of a spiritual master is to teach us the extreme futility of enjoying the material nature, enjoying material things in the material nature. So, our sense enjoyment, our fruitive activities, that futility he needs to emphasize and make us realize like that, help us realize like that. So that's why he's also telling that there is a mercy of the spiritual master to tell us how this world is not a fit place for our enjoyment and for living permanently. We making plans to live permanently like that. So Sukadeva Goswami speaks very bluntly within this chapter about the so-called glory of the material world. He's exhibiting the causeless mercy of the spiritual master, who takes his surrendered disciple back to the kingdom of God, Vaikuntha. So the essence of this chapter we heard is that Kali Yuga has so many degrading symptoms, and many people are situated in pride with false prestige and thinking that this body, I am this body, the bodily conception, and everything related to body is my possessions. So that strong possessive attitude is there. So we need to cultivate the understanding that this body is temporary. Anything coming out of this body or connected with this body also temporary. That is one understanding. When we understand that, we get a sense of detachment from fighting for this, hurting others to get something related to body like that. That is one principle. And the other principle we already heard in the 11th canto, which was that seeing everything in connection with Krishna. Positive aspect we already heard in 11th canto. Seeing everything in connection with Krishna and engaging in service of Krishna. So that is the main detachment principle is being emphasized in this particular chapter we are reading today. We will pause there. Tomorrow we'll continue with the next chapter, which is interesting one. Describes about Bhumi Gita, where uh, Earth is telling us some more instructions, and that chapter also ends in the glorification of the holy name also. So there are several glorifications of the holy name in the 12th canto I heard. So we'll come to these things. Looks like I'm interested. The glories of holy name is coming in the next chapter. So, but before that, Earth will talk about some of the symptoms of Kali Yuga. So we'll pause there. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Let's offer obeisance to all the devotees of the Lord. Vanchakalpatarvesha Kupasindhu Bevacha Paditana Pavanipyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. Thank you so much, devotees. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare